This episode is brought to you by Kavanaugh's Grill, one of my favorite places to eat and drink in any PA. They've got one of the best outdoor patios with 13 TVs and over 20 beers on tap. You can also dine inside at this cozy Irish-style pub where your beer never goes empty. Did I mention how delicious their food is? Their in-house smoked brisket, barbecue ribs, and wings are to die for. So grab your friends and have a drink on me at Kavanaugh's. Mention code STACKS for one free draft beer with purchase of any entree when you dine in. Located at 163 North Main Street in Mountaintop, Kavanaugh's is open at 4 p.m. during the week and 12 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday during football season. Dine in today at Mountaintop's only Irish-style pub. This episode is brought to you by the Pest Rangers. Finding insects in your home can be a real pest. I know I felt that way when I discovered termites living rent-free in my house. But thanks to the team at the Pest Rangers, I'm no longer bugging out over this issue. So if any creepy crawlers are cramping your style, there's no ifs, ands, or bugs about it. You gotta call the Pest Rangers. For more information on how to rid your home from unwanted pests, call the Pest Rangers today at 570-826-1114 or visit them online at thepestrangers.com. This episode is brought to you by Burn, the fitness company behind the Today Show approved Burn Board. If I'm being honest, working out can be a real chore, especially as a new dad in desperate need of sleep and cardio. Burn is founded by NEPA native Jimmy T. Martin, and his Burn Board offers a low-impact core and cardio experience unlike anything I've done before. They have hundreds of on-demand workouts that are great for beginners, seasoned athletes, and out-of-shape podcast hosts who love supporting small businesses. My wife and I use it pretty frequently throughout the week, and it's honestly a great way to burn a ton of calories without burning a ton of cash. Not to mention, it's a great tool for skiers, runners, wrestlers, and hockey players. Jimmy is offering all On the Stacks listeners 15% off when they use the code STACKS15. Visit theburn.com today to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15 at checkout. Again, that's theburn, THEBRRN.com to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15. It's time to get on board today with Burn.
And I'm not a chef anymore. You know, I cook at home and things like that, but I don't do that professionally. But I take all the things that I learned from these books or podcasts. I'm a podcast junkie, Jill will tell you, or articles, and I sort of whip them up into these new ideas, right? These new ideas for the college.
Oh yeah, whoa. Look, they can never keep me down, I'm going. And if I ever fail, just know I'll go again. I never quit, cause I know that every loss may lead to another win. I'm going up.
Hi, I'm Bill Corcoran Jr. This is the On the Stacks podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Stephanie Decker, Associate Vice President of Social and Economic Impact at Lackawanna College. What's up, podcast? It's Bill Corcoran Jr., host of the On the Stacks podcast, coming to you from the Blue Door Studio, protected by our friends at Ritchie Security Solutions. Stephanie Decker, welcome to the show.
Hi, Bill. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is great. You made it all the way from Scranton. You crossed that like invisible line of Luzerne and Lackawanna County today.
Yeah, we people from Scranton don't come down here that often. We don't cross that line.
And I think vice versa, right?
Right.
It's like a thing.
It's a thing.
You know, I feel like every time I have somebody on the show that's from Scranton, I feel like we have to talk about it. We have to acknowledge it.
We do.
You know, because I feel like everybody's on the same page with it. But it's like a weird thing. I don't know. What is it? Do you know?
I don't know. I think we each have great restaurants and stores, and there's kind of no need. Plus, we're so close to everything we need that we're not used to long commutes to get to things. Right.
Yeah. And I think you're right. You know, like you said, all the everybody has like the great restaurants, and there's you know, sometimes I'll go to Scranton for a restaurant or two, and you know, but otherwise I feel like it's almost like its own like little communities that everyone kind of just stays in, right?
Yeah.
But I'm glad to have you here. I'm glad you made the trip. You know, paid the tolls, whatever.
I did.
Whatever you had to pass to get through to Luzerne County, and I'm excited to have you here. And Dr. Jill Murray, I'm always grateful when she recommends somebody to come on my podcast, because I know anybody that Jill recommends is obviously is good people, right?
Aw, yeah, she's amazing, isn't she?
She is. She's the best. And for those listening that may not remember, Dr. Jill Murray was on the podcast. It's been some time now. She was episode 62, and this is like 130 something. So we're like I can't even believe it's been that long. I feel like I have to have her back on. I feel like it's been.
Oh yeah, she's done so much in those 60 some episodes.
You
so just much. Have to.
I know. So, but yeah. So like I said, I'm excited to have you here. You've done some amazing things at Lackawanna College over the last 10 years, right?
Yeah, I'm in my 13th year there, which seems like, I don't know. Those COVID years are a blur, right? I don't know if it was 1 or 3.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you started at Lackawanna College, I think you were in the culinary program, right? That's kind of how you got started there. But for you, culinary, from what I remember from our previous conversation, culinary dates back to when you were like a kid, right? Yeah,
literally dates back to the 80s for me.
So how old were you like when you first, like, how and why did you get into cooking?
So the when, I'd say I was about 10. The why is that I'm the oldest of 5 children, the oldest girl, and I feel like as an eldest daughter, if there's eldest daughters listening, we carry a lot of responsibility for our families. And I knew that my mom was facing some serious mental illness. And in the 80s, it really wasn't talked about much, but we also grew up in the public eye because my dad had a 53-year media career. He was a mayor, he was a state representative. So we were very much in the public eye, carrying a secret that we were sort of ashamed of at that time in history. And then my dad, who's a very vocal advocate and has now years of sobriety under his belt, he sort of dealt with that stress with alcoholism. And so at 10, I picked up the duties of cooking because it just needed to be done.
Okay. So from 10 years old, as the eldest child, right? How many siblings did you have?
5.
5.
Yeah.
And you just kind of had to sort of take the reins.
Yeah. My mom just was not able to. My dad always was working a lot. He just, a big family back then, 1 income, 5 kids. And so he was working a bunch of jobs. He was a news reporter. He was a radio DJ on weekends, and so somebody had to do that cooking and taking care of the little ones. And I started cooking, and my grandmother, my dad's mom, she really encouraged and taught me a lot. And she would give me a lot of affirmation, tell me that I had natural talent. And then I enjoyed it. So as I continued to do that, I would do little catering gigs, for people that we knew or for our church or stuff like that. And so I also grew up in a very traditional household where it was sort of thought that I would grow up and be a homemaker like my mom, even though I had sort of a rebellious spirit against that. I kind of wanted to go away and see the world and have a career. And so my parents thought that a culinary degree would be good for me. It would, hone this natural skill that I had. And then my mom was also okay with that because that would make me a good wife and mother. So I thought, all right, that's my ticket. That's my ticket to adventure. And right out of high school, I went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. And I started on a journey to get an associate's degree in culinary arts.
So what was that like growing up as a kid, having to kind of take on that responsibility, and your mother was struggling, your dad was struggling, both with 2 different things. And like you said, at that time, it wasn't talked about, right? No. Like, what was that like for you?
I think it was compounded by the fact that we were such a public family. Like, my maiden name is Shimkus. That's my dad's last name. But in the 70s when he started, or he probably started in media in the 60s, actually, ethnic names just weren't a thing. So they were like, all right, Frank Shimkus, what's your middle name? And he said Andrew. And they said, okay, you are Frank Andrews. So we grew up as the Andrew sisters.
Oh, wow.
And like, we're not Andrews at all. Like, it's just a made up name.
Wow.
But so everyone kind of knew us, and we looked like this perfect family that was really struggling with a lot of things that, but I talk about it now because I hope that other people will know that it's okay. It's not just them going through that or their family. Addiction and mental illness affects so many people. And so I really like to talk about it as much as I can. And I'm glad that there's a mental health awareness month. I'm glad that so many people support those who struggle with mental illness. And So it made my siblings and I stronger. I guess hard times always do. But so going back to your question, how did we do that? I took over cooking. My sister Sarah kind of dressed everybody. We all took something on. We all sort of formed this little bond that we knew that we could get through it together, and we did.
That's really cool. Everyone kind of just sort of took on a role and just worked as a team to keep the whole family together.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
On the Stacks will be back in a flash after a word from our sponsor.
I have the privilege of representing people who have been injured through no fault of their own, through unexpected and life-changing events and accidents, such as car accidents, medical malpractice. And they come to us and they place a lot of trust in us to tell us their story, which includes very personal information about their health, their injuries, their pain, their relationship with their spouse and their children. And we represent them against corporations and insurance companies who handle thousands of claims. And we make those companies and insurance adjusters know that our clients have a story, that they deserve compensation. And I'm proud to be able to do that for our clients at Anzalone Law.
And now we're back on the Stacks.
And I think it's so important, like you said, to be able to talk about, these things now, especially, like you grew up, in a household like that, very public eye, public figure. And, all that was probably obviously hidden and, couldn't be talked about. And it's probably like at least a relief now that you're able to share that and talk about that. And like you said, just if somebody's listening, they can learn from your experience.
They're not alone.
Yeah.
And, there are resources to help, and there are people that are a little further along in the journey, like me, that have been there. I've been that child. So I really like talking to people that have parents or loved ones going through mental illness, because you learn a lot. You learn how to cope, and you learn the value of good therapy and a good support system, and the same with addiction. So there's a lot of good communities that can offer support.
Absolutely. All right, so you went away to culinary school.
I did.
What was that like?
Magical.
Yeah.
So, have you ever seen Harry Potter, like the Hogwarts?
Of course.
So, the Culinary Institute of America is this beautiful old, the main building is this beautiful old building along the Hudson River, and it literally looks like the dining hall of Hogwarts. And CIA, as we call it, my husband gets teased all the time. People will say, like, dude, your wife's CIA?
I know, it's so funny. Before, like, I ever knew somebody that went there, when somebody always said that to me, I'm just like pretending like I knew what they were talking about. I was like, I don't think they're actually talking about the real, like the Central Intelligence Agency.
Right.
But I'm like, wait a second, what did they just say?
Right.
Yeah.
So if your listeners hear me say CIA, that's the Culinary Institute of America.
Right.
I'm not,
You're not a spy.
No, I'm not a spy. But it was magical, and part of what makes CIA so incredible is that there's like a finite number of certified master chefs in the world, and like 75% of them teach at CIA. So you are literally, I'm going to keep going with the Hogwarts story
theme?
here.
Okay,
yes,
good.
You're learning from wizards.
Okay.
These people are the top of their craft and everything. And charcuterie, I tease my friends now. Charcuterie is something that came out in 2022. I got 3 credits in 1992 in charcuterie.
So you're like the OG. Yeah.
Right. So someone who, grew up in Germany and just learned the art of charcuterie or butchery or, pastries. It's just the best of the best. It was an incredible experience. I learned to raise the bar really high for myself professionally. I learned a strong work ethic. Another thing about CIA is it's very geographically near West Point, and the two have an exchange program. And, West Point obviously is very military based. So is CIA.
Okay.
Right? Like, I think it's very easy to get in CIA. It's very hard to complete because it's so rigorous. So I was really proud of myself that I was able to endure that, rigorous couple of years learning from these wizards and graduate.
Yeah. So, all right, we'll continue the Harry Potter theme here.
Okay.
So what was it? Platform 9 3/4, right?
9 3/4.
Did you have to do that to get into? Was that part of the application or what?
No. Yeah, it should have been. No. Yeah, it wasn't.
Funny. They probably have teachers, professors, like you said, come from all over the world, like Germany, that would come in and teach their craft.
Yes, top experts in that particular craft. So you really learned from the best. I mean, we had Julia Childs come, we had the best of the best just come and be guest speakers.
Wow.
So I was literally exposed to the top in every way that I could have ever imagined.
Were you intimidated, like going into it?
I was intimidated because, your first meal there, I told you they like to weed people out. My first meal there was veal sweetbreads and frog legs. Now, I don't know if your listeners will remember, there was a place in Clark Summit called the Inn at Nichols Village. I worked there a lot, and I would make sweetbreads when I worked at the Sojourner, which was this great bakery. But so to me, this little naive girl from Scranton, sweetbreads were banana bread, pumpkin muffins, and then, to sit down and be exposed to all these crazy foods like veal sweetbreads, which are the glands inside the throat of a baby cow, and be, observed eating them to make sure that you are willing to try these things. So yeah, I was intimidated.
So like they really put you through a test.
They did. Yeah, they sure did. So
like
yes.
really to weed you out in terms of like, are you serious about?
Are you serious? Yeah.
Are you serious about
Are you going to try
doing
this? Or are you going to say, oh no? Or are you going to come with an open mind?
Yeah. So you passed the first test, huh?
I did. Yeah.
All right. So take me through it. So what did you like? What was your plan when you started? Like what were you looking to specialize in?
I really didn't have a plan. At that point, if I'm being totally honest, I needed to get out of my house. There was a lot of stress there, and I was looking to get a little adventure, and, CIA or a culinary degree was my ticket to do that and to earn a degree. I knew I always wanted to go to college of some sort. I wanted to be a lawyer, but that just wasn't encouraged. So I went to CIA, not really with a plan in mind, but something happened to me while I was there. The magic of a culinary degree is there's so much you can do with it. There's podcasts on food, right? There's food photography. There's e-commerce food sites. There's not, it's not just line cooks or caterers. So one day I was studying on Roosevelt Mansion's lawn. That is up there. And quotes from Eleanor were everywhere. And the quote said, do something every day that scares you. And so at that point, I was about to go into a table service class, and we had to do classical French tableside service with real live guests. And big names come to CIA restaurants. It's intimidating. And when you're used to being in the kitchen and now you're serving, your hands are shaking. And I started to do that. And I realized that although I was shy, I was an extrovert. I loved being around people and out in the dining room and hearing the feedback. And so right after that class, I was nearing graduation. I applied for a fellowship as basically a teaching assistant in that classical French table service restaurant. So I sort of thought, I want to either be a restaurant owner. I want to be something where I don't lose contact with the public.
Okay. So but you were still interested in cooking, but also you want to be, I don't know what they call the other part of the restaurant business.
Front of the house.
Front of the house. But you want to do both.
I did.
Or just figure out a way to mix the two together.
Yeah. I knew that I didn't want, being in the kitchen is a lot, it's a lot of being alone. You're with your little tribe. It's like a team, you're high adrenaline, high stress, get it done, and then kind of clean up and go home.
What's that like? I've never worked in a restaurant. I know a lot of people that have. And what's that just from, I mean, I think everybody knows that the restaurant business is a very tough business, a very stressful business. What's
it like? It's stressful. It's high speed. It's energetic. It's highly rewarding. There's not many industries that you make a product and get immediate feedback from your customer. If you're making sneakers, you make the sneaker, then somebody has to sell the sneaker, then the customer gets the sneaker and wears them, and then you might get a review, a year after you created the recipe for the sneaker. As a chef, you're getting feedback instantly, and feedback comes in plates that have lots of food on them, right? Why didn't they eat this?
Yeah.
Or complaints.
Why didn't they take it home?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of, once it gets in under your skin and in your blood, it's very addicting.
It's an addicting business,
huh? It is. It's really fun.
So then you apply for this fellowship.
Yep.
What was that?
Front of the house, which is what we call the dining room professionally. So that was in, CIA has 4 public restaurants. They've changed identities over the year. At the time that I was there, it was called Escoffier, and it was the classical French restaurant. So the students were learning classical French cuisine in the kitchen, and then the students that were at the bar or in the dining room, they were doing classical French tableside service. Like if someone ordered sole, you were deboning it and making the sauce for customers right there at the table. We were like, back in the 90s, like lighting things on fire tableside was really popular.
Now it's probably a big fire hazard, right?
Right. Yeah, that's so nice.
So you ran like a true restaurant, like a true operation.
We did.
Right?
Yep.
Right in school.
Right in school. And we do that now at Lackawanna College.
That's awesome.
We'll get to that in a few minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so all right. So then did you start teaching?
No. So then at the time when I graduated, an associate's degree was as high as you could go. There was no bachelor, there was no master's, there certainly wasn't a PhD. That was it. I have 72 credits that start with CUL. Right? Like if you, right now, I work in higher ed. To teach accounting, some institutions require you to have 15 or 18 credits of your discipline. I have 72.
Wow.
Culinary.
Wow.
So it was
a lot.
It was like what we called a terminal degree. There was nothing more to get. So I came back home. I, had a boyfriend that was my high school sweetheart, and I, had a hint that he would be my husband, and spoiler alert, he still is.
He still is.
So I came home and I started working locally.
Okay, what did you do? What was your first job out of school?
So I took a job for a developer who was opening at Montage, kind of a plaza of hotel and restaurants, and they hired me as a restaurant manager. So I got to oversee the front and the back of the house, and I really liked that. And I also got to work with the GM of hotels. So I got to kind of help to create an entire guest experience, from staying at a hotel to then having a drink at the bar, having food, your dining experience. So I did that for about 5 years. Then Nichols Village pulled me back in, and I ended up being the executive banquet chef there for a while. And then, that's a hard 5 years.
Yeah.
Being on your feet, and starting out with Nichols Village did a lot of ski groups back then. So I'd be in at 4 a.m. getting breakfast ready for the ski groups, and then home to sleep for a couple hours, and then back for a wedding at night.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a long day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long day. So then I just I started working for some small restaurants. And so small restaurants became my specialty. And I really got to learn a lot about entrepreneurship and what makes small businesses tick. And so I really like that. That's sort of my niche.
All right. Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
I just got to watch how entrepreneurs would have an idea, look in the food landscape and see something that was missing and then bring it to life. And I learned a lot of good lessons. I learned how careful you have to be as a restaurateur with money, right? Profit margins in restaurants aren't super high, so you have to be vigilant and you have to be on property, really. There's a reason that chain restaurants are very successful, because they're very regimented, right?
They have a process.
They have a process. You make the recipe that looks exactly like this and you pour it up to this line. But for small businesses, the way that they can kind of react to that is they have to be there. The owners have to be there to ensure that the bartenders and servers and, are all sticking to their recipes and, not giving things away on the house when the house doesn't know.
Right. And when their friends come in.
Yeah, right.
Because we've all been there.
Yeah,
We've all
right.
been the friend before, right?
Yes, exactly. This is on the house. And you're like, does the house know about this?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah. All right. So tell me about, what exactly were you consulting?
No, I was working for restaurants. I spent a ton of my career in Clark Summit. So I worked for this restaurant called Papato Cafe. Great family. They were my favorite restaurant at the time. When I would come home from CI, this is where I would want to eat. So at one point after, the executive chef stint for catering, I went there. During that time, Eddie and I started to have a family. So then I pulled back and I started to do some front of the house stuff, some baking and pastry stuff, because I could go in really early in the morning when our oldest daughter, Madison, was asleep and, make the desserts and then come back later when Eddie came home from work and do those. So I worked there for about another 5 or 6 years. And then I got the bug for my own business. And so I had always sort of been scheming this. I learned from entrepreneurs. I saw the life that I wanted. I saw what could make money, what could be fun, what I was good at. And so in, 2003, my sisters and I opened a restaurant in Clark Summit called the Euro Cafe. We were all young moms at the time. We were open from 6 a.m. to 2. So it was perfect. It was perfect hours to have a family and kind of balance everything we want, be able to have a relationship with our husbands, be able to be a good mom, be able to be at a PTA meeting or a little league game or something like that, but still be in the industry that we loved.
Yeah. So at that time, how many kids did you have?
So at the time, 2003, I would have had 3 kids. So Eddie and I have 4 children. We have 3 daughters, Madison, Morgan, and Sydney. So they were all born at this point. And then 2 years into that, this is a really funny story. So my sisters and I all have a bunch of kids between us. And when we bought the Euro Cafe, there were 2 bathrooms. A men's and a ladies' room. And at this time, we were like, oh shoot, we're all pregnant. We're going to need a place to put a playpen. So we made a unisex bathroom and we turned the other bathroom into a playpen. So Blake, our youngest, was born in 2005, a couple years into owning our restaurant.
Then you had your own little private daycare center.
We did.
Right?
We sure did. When we'd go on break, though, you were watching everybody's kids.
Yeah. That's really cool. So, all right. So like, what did you guys specialize in at that place?
So we were really known. We went away down to Clearwater, Florida, and got a certificate in coffee roasting, which is an entire different sector of the culinary world. So we started roasting our own coffee. We would wholesale and we would sell it to our customers retail there. We did soups, breakfast, lunch, and tons of pastries. We had an agreement with the woman who owns my mother's delicacies to sell her rugelach product. And so we would sell a ton of that in all different flavors. So breakfast, lunch, pastries, coffee. We had like a cult following for our soups too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, all right, so what was that like as a young mom, entrepreneur, business owner, 4 kids? What was that like for you to balance all of that?
It was a lot, but I loved it. My sisters and I were and are really close, and we worked really well together. We absolutely loved our customers. It was really awesome to build this, and things were just going awesome. But then, if you can start ticking away, we owned it for 10 years, so bought it in 2003. Blake was born in 2005. Then we're starting to accelerate towards 2008 in the Great Recession. At the same time, we were the only coffee shop in Clark Summit. So we really, it was like a captive market. They came to us.
Yeah, you were it.
We were it. And then all of a sudden, at the same time that we were headed towards the Great Recession, we got a Dunkin', we got a Starbucks, we got a Sheetz, which Sheetz took a huge bit of our clientele. It was just super convenient. But, as an entrepreneur, I just kept learning, right? I kept learning, okay, this is appealing to a customer. I have to pay attention to that. And the lesson of being an entrepreneur and watching entrepreneurs serves me so much now in my role at the college, which we'll get to when we get there. So as we got to about 2008, 2009, it was getting more stressful to be an entrepreneur. And we made it though, we did okay. But then in 2010, I always say all of a sudden my life and my purpose sort of intersected, and here I always thought it was to be a restaurateur and to create food and menus. And I met some executives from Lackawanna College who heard about me and asked if I'd be interested in consulting because they wanted to bring an incredible school of hospitality to Scranton. And so they asked me if I'd be willing to consult. I said yes. And then I just fell in love with the mission. I fell in love with the culture of the college, the people. And so in 2010, I took over and I was working 2 jobs. I had the restaurant and then I took over as the director of the yet to be formed School of Hospitality at Lackawanna College.
So you were doing both?
I was doing both.
What was that like?
I wouldn't recommend it. It was a lot.
Yeah. So okay. So you said you came to this intersection.
Yeah.
Right? This intersecting point in your life.
Yep. And it was hard, because I was going to let my sisters down. My sisters didn't go to culinary school, right? They just were, they could be self-taught really well. One of them had a really good banking background. So she and her husband could take care of the finances, everybody had a skill set, but if I left them, that was going to be big. So that was a hard decision for me to make, but ultimately we all made the decision together and we closed the restaurant in 2012. So I did those 2 jobs for about 2 years.
Yeah. Well, what was that like? I know, having to, be working in a, we'll call it a family business, right? What was that like having to tell your sisters hey, I think I'm going to go do this. But that was probably very tough on you and everybody, right?
It was very tough on me. It was very tough on them. I, certainly probably disappointed them, changed where they thought that their futures would head. The good news is everybody is in a good place now, but it was tough, but at the same time, they were all tired. They all had young children and had hung on tooth and nail through the Great Recession.
Yeah, probably a little burnt out, right?
Yeah, a little burnt out. So it was okay.
Yeah.
And, and then I embarked on this career that I'm enjoying at Lackawanna College.
Nice. So wait, so did you say that they recruited you? They how did that work out?
So it was probably about 2009 that Mark Volk, he was the executive vice president at the time. Ray Angeli was the president of Lackawanna College. He somehow got connected. We had a meeting and he told me about this vision that he has to, Lackawanna is really great at workforce ready degree programs. You graduate, you go right into a job, right? Like nursing and culinary, it's not theory. It's you are highly trained to do a particular skill and you get employed instantly. So he saw a vision for bringing a school of hospitality with not only a hospitality, but culinary and baking and pastry degrees to our region. And he wanted to do something as good as CIA, but, on a Northeast Pennsylvania budget. Something that was a little, I kind of call us the fast casual of higher ed, right? You have the fine dining restaurants that you get the white tablecloths and the crystal, and that's kind of CIA and Johnson and Wales. And then you have in the restaurant industry, you have the Chipotles and the Paneras that are the fast casual, really good high quality ingredients, transparency, but you don't need China. Right? You get it at a better price point, but still all the things that are important to you. So that was sort of Mark's vision. And I just fell in love with the mission, the vision, and the entire idea of bringing to my hometown the best of the best of what I had learned outside of this area.
So you were tasked with building this whole culinary program.
Yes.
That didn't exist yet. Where did you even start?
I always work backwards. That's sort of my my strategy. I think of the vision of what I want the end game to be, and then I sort of keep walking backwards and say, okay, what has to be true before that, before that, before that, before that. So I always had this vision of having a world-class school of hospitality, bringing, after some time, I did go back for a bachelor's degree at Johnson and Wales, which is CIA and Johnson and Wales consider themselves the Harvard and Yale of culinary education, huge rivals. But Johnson & Wales had an online degree, so it was a no-brainer for me to go there. But, they're expensive schools and you have to go away. And not all of our students can or want to go away. So I really had a passion to bring the best of those two styles right to our backyard in our region. So I started with that and I thought, what do I want it to look like? What are non-negotiables for me, right? I told you CIA taught me a really high bar of standards. If the bar is here, I'm shooting for here. I just always am. And that was embedded in me at CIA and at Johnson & Wales. So I just started working back. But when I started, we opened our degree. We had no kitchen. We had no knives or pots or anything. We had no students. Yeah. So I had to go nothing. Yeah. I had a design curriculum, which was outside of my area of expertise. So I really had to learn there. And then I had to go sell the vision. And one thing that I learned about myself through that process is if I believe in something, I can sell it. And that was a really big awakening for me. So I started to sell the vision, and I would literally take my car with my pots and pans and my knives and drive to restaurants and ask them if we could use their facilities on a Monday night when they were closed. And those were our pop-up classrooms. In the very beginning in 2010, we opened with 4 students. And we grew, pre-COVID, when COVID, kind of reverberated all through higher ed. Pre-COVID, we were at over 125 students. We had 4 degrees programs. We had an 85-seat restaurant and bar, kind of like how I experienced it at CIA, where all 4 of our majors go live in their classrooms and the public come in and they get to plug and play what they've learned in class for real customers.
That's really impressive. Wow. So you took everything basically like you learned, right? And you basically took, what you, the setting and everything there at CIA, and you kind of brought it right here to Scranton.
Yep. That was the plan. And I was surrounded by awesome leaders, and I assembled this incredible team that helped me do that. You know, when you want to create a world that doesn't exist yet, you have to have people who believe in that world. And man, did I ever.
So you had these people around you that really supported you and kind of gave you the free rein to really develop the program, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So what was that like starting? It was probably a lot of pressure starting this whole thing out. Like, is this going to work out? Like, or, you know, how's this going? I mean, that's a lot. This is a serious thing that you embarked on here. This isn't like a small project.
No, it wasn't. And, you know, I think if I knew how scary it was going to be, I probably would have thought about it more. But, you know, Dr. Jill Murray is our president now. So, you know, Ray Angeli, when I got recruited, then Mark Volk took over as president. Now it's Dr. Jill Murray. And so I reported to her in the beginning for a very long time, and she has mentored me ever since. But I'll tell you, we have a nickname for her. We call her Gas Pedal, because it is always full speed ahead with her. So I learned that Lackawanna was going to be a culture of make it happen. And, you know, so it was really helpful for me to have that entrepreneurial toolbox to sort of dig back in to know how to build things.
Yeah, you kind of touched on that a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
You said about your entrepreneurial journey earlier on kind of helped you at this part of your life. So what was it that you took from those early entrepreneurship journeys you had and brought it to Lackawanna College?
You know, scrappiness, learning that if you really believe in someone, that, you know, 6 people could say no, but the 7th might say yes. You know, just that, the ability to dream, to sell a vision, to not take no for an answer, to find resources, because when you're first starting out as an entrepreneur, you don't have all the resources, right? You have to either be connected with people that do have those resources, or you have to make do. And, you know, my life as a catering chef really taught me to be resourceful, because if we were doing an off-premise wedding and the electricity went out, figure it out, buddy. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. If you forgot something in your 45 minutes from your facility, you have to MacGyver it. Get into the client's garage and make something work. So all of those experiences, you know, as I said, my life intersected with my purpose. They were all preparing me to build this awesome school of hospitality at Lackawanna College.
Did you ever think that you would get into higher ed, like
Never.
in this aspect?
Never. And then come to think about it, people that would work with us at the cafe, I'd be teaching them a technique or something, and it would come back to me after I was in higher ed. And, you know, one of our people that we would work with would say, wow, you're a really good teacher. But I was sort of like, oh, okay. You know, like not like a literal teacher. And then all of a sudden I found myself being a literal culinary teacher.
Yeah, you actually became one.
Right.
So what was that like now being on that side of the fence, we'll call it, right? You went from student doing this, and now you're teaching and developing these programs. What was that like being the teacher?
It was like breathing for the first time. It was just so exhilarating. I realized in that moment how much I had to share. You know, it's one thing, you know, you graduated from college as well. We were talking about this before. It's one thing to learn from a professor who has book knowledge, perhaps only. And it's another thing to learn from a professor or a chef who has book knowledge and who has also screwed this lesson up 12 times and has some really good tips so that you don't.
Yeah, like you learn the hard way.
Yes, you learn the hard way. Like I could teach them, hey, I messed this up in the industry. Here's what I did wrong. Learn from this. And I would like skip out of class knowing that I was saving them a ton of stupid tax, you know, or time or wasted energy. I loved it. I absolutely loved teaching, and I loved being with students. Yeah.
So what was your favorite part of teaching?
I think when you see the light bulb go off. You know, as a teacher, there's some students that a teacher wants it more than the student does, and that stinks. You know, you leave there so bummed because you know that they have such potential. But when you see a student whose eyes light up with whatever curriculum, like there was this one girl sitting in a beverage service class, and we were talking about wines and grape varietals and growing conditions and just all of the stuff that might put other people to sleep. And I could just see her eyes widening, and she was just so excited about it. And she went on, she's living in Napa now, and she has a certification from the Court of Master Sommeliers. She's a sommelier out there. She spent time in Oregon. So those kind of experiences, when you watch someone discover their future, that's just You can't beat that.
Yeah, there's no words for it.
There's no words. I have the chills.
Yeah.
That's the
so
best
do
day
I,
at work ever.
Yeah, being able to see, kind of like, it's a like a role reversal, and being able to see them know that like, hey, this is what I want to do, and know that you had the knowledge to teach them and guide them. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, all right, so where did this program lead you? Like, how long did you run this program, and what kind of came next after this for you?
So, yeah, it took a number of years to build the program. And so, as I said, we started out with 2 associate's degree, hospitality arts and culinary arts. Then we added a bachelor's degree because we had a good problem start to happen. We had students who didn't want to leave us, and not just our degrees, other students that, Lackawanna at that time was mostly an associate's degree granting institution. But we had students that were like, boy, I wish you had a bachelor's in this. So, our leadership was wise enough to notice that, listen to our customers, our students. So then we moved on, we developed a bachelor's degree, and then we added a baking and pastry degree. And then Jill Murray, who we've talked about, our president, she's always just mentored me so well. And, I would just say to her, like, I'm hungry for more. It's sort of like, I've done this. What's next?
Gas pedal.
And Jill she's this amazing leader that if she has talent, she won't miss up having a great thinker or leader at her table just because a position doesn't exist. So she started thinking a new position based on what she saw as my strengths and potentials. And so during the start of COVID, I was transitioning out of the director of the School of Hospitality and into my current role, which is the Associate Vice President for Social and Economic Impact.
What is that? That sounds complicated.
It's complicated, but it's not, right? So this is sort of always who I've been. I've always wanted the people of our region and our region to live better stories, period. And that's social and economic impact. If we as a higher educational institution can equip our students and our community with the tools necessary to be an entrepreneur, right? I learned a lot about that. And now we have a venture lab, which is a pre-business incubator. It serves students, employees, and external, people in the community, and helps them launch their business ideas. If developing degree programs that help people achieve social and economic mobility, right? Change their family tree, get family wage sustaining jobs, things like that. Connection to the community. Social capital is a really big thing, and a lot of students coming into college, especially those born into poverty, they don't have that. They don't. And Lackawanna College, we are so good at bridging gaps and resourcing students, so they have the same chance of success as another student does. So, at its basic core, in my job, I get to think about ways that education, entrepreneurship, and community connections can help people live better lives.
Wow, that's powerful.
Wakes you up every day.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's like all that combined, and like you said, gas pedal.
Oh,
I love it.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
her.
So talk about the culture a little bit at Lackawanna College, because I think that's something so important that I think that makes Lackawanna College stand out, in my opinion, above a lot of other colleges. Is this culture that you guys have, this hands-on, down and dirty experience that you're getting from people like you.
Yep.
And then being able to go out there, and like you said, a lot of these almost or all the students they're being prepped actually to go to work a job. It's not like, hey, you're gonna read this and take these tests and then,
good luck figuring out if there's a job for,
Yeah. So so what's this? It's like a culture of innovation. Right?
So recently we polled our employees and just said, top of mind, what words come to mind when you think about Lackawanna College? And over the last 10 years specifically, right? Because we've had a transformation at Lackawanna College, and I hear it all the time from people in the community. And I'm so glad that they see it, but transformation doesn't come organically or easily. It's intentional. So the top word that people kept saying about our culture, they would say things like collaborative, that we know that we have a purpose, but they would always say innovative. And so Jill Murray and Dr. Erica Barone Preachy and I, she is our provost now, we started to really talk about this and think, hey, we really did work really hard over the last 10 years to change our culture, to change perception, to start granting bachelor's degrees, to start thinking outside the box. Maybe we should start thinking about sharing some of those strategies that we used in order to see organizational transformation.
That's a major shift. I mean,
shift.
That's a major shift to be able to change the culture and innovate. How did you guys do it?
Jill Murray is the rainmaker and she is the creator. But I will tell you, I brought a lot of books here today because books are the way that Jill plants seeds. She is a seed planter and she'll look for fertile soil and then she'll watch and see what happens. And, sometimes there's a drought conditioner. Sometimes the soil is just unwilling, right? We're going back and forth between people and soil, but she will plant the seeds of all these books that she'll give to us, and then we'll talk about them. We'll do intentional leadership development. We've been doing that for over 10 years. We do mentoring at Lackawanna College. We do big strategic planning where we really set goals. What is the vision? What is that? Jim Collins calls it the BHAG. What is that big, hairy, audacious goal? All right, let's set it out there. And now how are we going to do it? And who's responsible for that? And so that became part of our culture, setting these wild goals and then putting people in charge, empowering people, putting them in charge of it, holding them accountable, and giving them everything they need to get it done.
So you brought some of these books with you today.
I did.
Which one's your favorite here?
I think this one here, Creating Magic, was the first book that the college ever gave to me. And, Disney is such it's such a special hospitality company. And, you could see it's all dog-eared and highlighted. And
you got a lot of notes in there.
Got a lot of notes in there. But that one is sort of my favorite because this one really, this started my knowledge on what leadership is and how to be a good leader. It was kind of ABCs for me. I think the subtitle is 10 Common Sense Leadership Strategies. That's what I needed. I wanted to be a leader, but no one had ever really taught me formally about leadership or given me strategies to develop myself as a leader. So that book really started my leadership journey for me.
Nice. So what's the secretive book club that Dr. Jill Murray's got you guys all wrapped up in here?
Oh, I will tell you, be careful. If you ask her for a book.
I shouldn't even have brought it up.
No, yeah, she's going to be listening and she's going to be on Amazon buying you a book.
As soon as this is out, I'll be getting books before this episode probably even comes out, right?
Yeah. Oh, you will. I tell people she's like Oprah, you get a book, get a book. She just passes books out, but she doesn't just leave them out there. When she notices that, the soil is fertile and able to produce a harvest, man, does she keep investing in it and talking about it and nurturing it and showering it with all the things necessary for growth. She's just amazing.
So she's a great leader.
She's a great leader.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. I love Jill.
Me too.
She is the best. I got to get her back on here.
You do.
And speaking of books, you kind of hinted at it, I think, just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
But the three of you are writing your own.
We are. Jill, Erica, and I learned so much from books, and I'm not a chef anymore. I cook at home and things like that, but I don't do that professionally. But I take all the things that I learned from these books or podcasts. I'm a podcast junkie, Jill will tell you, or articles, and I sort of whip them up into these new ideas, right? These new ideas for the college. And so Jill and Eric and I have been doing that together strategically for over the last 10 years, and we thought, you know what? Because people have made such comments about the transformation of our organization, let's write down what we did and how we did it so that other organizations or other businesses can copy the strategies like we have from so many other amazing thought leaders.
So the three of you are all co-authoring this book.
Yes.
And putting all these strategies literally down on paper.
Yes.
So do you have any maybe you can kind of share? I know you're probably still in the midst of writing and you probably don't want to give too much away.
Right.
But do you have one or two things that maybe you could share that you guys are currently working on?
Well, one of them I just shared with you. Erica and I talk a lot about the soil metaphor and how, as a leader, you really have to, if you're not learning, you're not growing. Right. And so some people in business, they just don't know that they still have to learn, or a culture of being a lifelong learner hasn't been part of their experience. So Erica and Jill and I write a lot about how Jill sews into employees and what strategy she uses. And, Jill and I, or Erica and I, kind of make fun of her a little bit in some of them, because sometimes you'll be like, okay, Jill, I'm drowning.
Drowning in books. I'm drowning in books.
Yeah.
I don't have enough bookshelves in my house.
Right. But there's another, another chapter that Erica and I and Jill talk about, and we call it successful failures. And we've really learned to not only be okay, but to encourage failures. If you're not failing, then you're not trying enough. And we're not talking $5 million, or somebody loses a life failures.
Micro failures.
Right. We're talking about micro failures where you come up with an idea, you do your due diligence, you hold people accountable, everybody really tries, but it doesn't work.
And then you just change gears.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You change gears. And so we have developed a culture of that. And, we have like these little like project funerals, like, okay, see ya, didn't work. What did we learn from you? And how can we pivot?
Yeah. And don't do it again.
Don't do it again.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's so important, because I feel like a lot of people just in business and entrepreneurship and anything in business, I think people are afraid to, like to take a risk or just to do something different, or like you said, just try it, do your homework, execute it. And, like you said, like it's not a $5 million mistake we're talking here. It's just a little learning lesson is really what it is.
It really is. And if your people don't feel safe to try things, they won't.
Right.
Make it safe. Make it safe to ask wild questions, to think about what we should be doing that we aren't, to challenge that's the way we've always done it in this industry, to look at what the customer wants, and then to make a really good, educated try and say, okay, it didn't work and we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Let's get back. And
exactly.
try again.
Yeah. So you also said you're a podcast junkie. You learn from podcasts. Like what have you learned just from listening to other shows? I always find it interesting, obviously being myself in the podcast world, like what have you learned professionally?
Oh, that's a great question. And I'm really going to have to narrow it down.
Because it could be personal stuff
I listen to
too.
a lot of leadership podcasts.
Okay.
John Maxwell he's classic. I learn from him every time I listen to him. Andy Stanley has a really good leadership podcast that I love and I listen to all the time. So I'll listen to those two for personal growth. They changed the name, but the podcast was called Building a Story Brand, and it was all about starting businesses and marketing them well. And so I listened to that for a season when we were launching the Venture Lab, just to kind of get back into that entrepreneurial mindset and what the entrepreneur is thinking about now, in 2022. Of course, I listened to On the Stacks.
Of course, yeah.
Of course.
I had to throw that in there.
Right?
I was just prompting you to give me a plug.
I love about this one? I love learning about what all the other awesome people in our region are doing. Because sometimes there's just so much, or it's in Luzerne County and I don't hear about it in Lackawanna County, right? So it's so good to stay connected. And for my brain, what happens is I start Googling that person that's on your podcast, and then I reach out to them on LinkedIn because I say, hey, I have this idea that we could collaborate.
Yeah. I love that. That's happened so many times where, people have been on the show here and then looked back, or just eventually, like once their episode comes out, then they start interacting with like other previous guests, and then people just get connected and people start doing business with each other. Like, I love that. I love to see that. I love when that happens, because I feel like everybody that comes on my show, it's almost like you become part of like this family, and it's like, you'll see after you're on, you're gonna, all the On the Stacks people will be connected to you, and like, you never know where things can go, who you can meet. And like you said, there's so many people that sometimes maybe just don't get the spotlight, and sometimes maybe the news doesn't make it to Lackawanna County,
Yes.
So it's cool to be able to, for me to be able to share, about people like you and just other small businesses, big businesses, just everything from mom and pop to people who run, $1 billion company. I've had the gamut.
What I love about your
right?
podcast, right?
Like it's and I think the thing about it is like, it's like real life experience, and it's people coming on the show, again, such as yourself, and being willing to talk about things that most people especially maybe in a role like that you have at a school, right? To talk about things that most people really wouldn't talk about in public, you know, or in a public setting, or something that gets heavily promoted, you know, like you talked about your family and growing up and the mental health and the addictions and like you getting through all that. And now look where you're at. You know what I mean? Like all those experiences, and for you to be able to share those with my audience, I think is so valuable.
Well, I'm so grateful.
Absolutely.
To be here.
Yeah. So, all right. So what are you guys working on next? Besides the book, is there anything else coming up that you guys are doing, big or small?
So, yes, I'm going to talk about something a little bit. I'm going to tease it.
All right, go ahead.
By the time this probably airs, right?
Okay.
We will be almost ready to announce something really cool that we're doing at 409 on Adams, which is our student-run restaurant, okay? So one of the things that Lackawanna really prides itself on is we embed a lot of businesses into curriculum, right? So 409 on Adams is a fully operational restaurant that is embedded into those particular degree programs. We also have a student-run marketing company that's embedded into our marketing concentration. So both of those cohorts will be working on this super cool project. So I'll give you just a couple hints, and then I'm going to beg of all your listeners to start following our social media, check out our website, because the first week of November, we are going to start leaking some major hints about something major that's coming to 409 on Adams. I'll give you a couple hints. Disney.
Oh boy.
Scranton native who made it big and wants to do something cool in her hometown. And Christmas.
Jeez. I don't know. Well, even if I did know, I don't think I would say it because I don't want to spoil it. But I don't know. I really don't know.
But my point in teasing that out is that one of the things I love so much about our culture of innovation is, you know, we're never going to can 10 years of curriculum and put that on the academic shelf and bring the same can down each semester and give it to the students. Every semester, we're going to be looking to give our students the most dynamic learning experience that meets their objectives possible. So I don't know if you heard about during COVID, we did Rally for Restaurants, which was this super successful pivot to the problem of restaurants were closing and how could we open and take patrons from the restaurants that were literally dying on the vine. So Rally for Restaurants was just this incredible learning environment for our students during that time. You know, guest chefs from all these restaurants came in, taught our classes, and then because we had the employees and the students, we had all the food because that's how we teach them. We had all the bar, we gave the restaurants all the profits. Every dollar of revenue that came in. So that was so fun for students. And, I remember at the end of that, Jill said to me, so what are you going to do next? And I was like, oh crap, how am I ever going to top this? And so we go to the team meetings and we talk about how we're going to top it, but we got something really, good.
How do you keep topping yourself? Like it's
books, great, surround yourself with great people. Internally, externally, like like every time I make a connection with somebody externally, I get a great idea. And now I have another friend that could be a resource to help make our region a better place. And that's what we're doing at Lackawanna College, making our lives better for our students in our region.
Gas pedal.
I
love that.
That's her.
I love it. You guys are really doing some cool things.
Thanks.
It's impressive. It really is. And I applaud you for being so open and willing to talk about everything personally and professionally and all your knowledge. And I'm looking forward to that book. Do you guys have a timeline on that?
Well, I just got a nudge before I came here that we need to set our next due date. Okay. So we're now in the editing phase. Okay. So we all wrote, and now we sort of have to edit each other and ourselves. And
okay, so it's actually pretty far along.
Oh, it's pretty far along.
Oh, I didn't think it was this far along.
No, it's pretty far along.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, we're already thinking of what the second book will be.
Trying to top yourself already. Yeah. Well, no, it's super exciting. Yeah. It's kind of cool because, with this impromptu book club that Jill kind of started and planted all these seeds, and now you guys are writing your own. It just kind of,
that's surreal.
It is.
It's surreal.
Yeah.
She
cool
gives
thing.
us all these books from these incredible authors and thought leaders, and to think that, we might have a chance to share some stuff we've learned, that's just amazing and humbling.
It is. Yeah, that's super cool. Well, this is great. So how can our listeners connect with you online? Where can they find the big upcoming news,
Yep.
right? So where's the best place to find that? And just in general, how can people connect with Lackawanna College?
So in general, I'd say head to our website, www.lackawanna.edu. If people want to find me professionally or personally, my LinkedIn, don't forget my maiden name is Shimkus, not Andrews. So on
That's
LinkedIn,
right.
I am Stephanie Shimkus Decker, and you can find me there. And then I would encourage your listeners to follow our socials, particularly for the big news that I'm kind of dripping out there. 409 on Adams on Instagram and on Facebook are two sites that we'd love to follow, and we'd love everybody to come and give our students some experience. Come join us in a live classroom dining night. At this point, we're open every Thursday night, and that changes, every semester. Usually, we're open maybe Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So, connect with us through those ways.
Awesome. This is great. I appreciate you. Again making the dangerous trip from Scranton.
And now I got to go back.
Yeah. Hopefully you can make it back safe. Hope you have enough money for the tolls and everything, and you have to pass. You take your passport, I'm sure, right? The whole bit. So, well, this is great. I'm looking forward to hearing the news myself, and of course checking out the book when it does come out. So you got to keep me updated.
I will.
I'm sure. I know we're all going to keep in touch.
Yeah.
Especially with Jill and I keep in touch frequently. Just with all things. Right. So I'm sure I'll hear about it one way or another, but I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me, Bill. This has been a blast.
Absolutely. All right. Stephanie Decker, Lackawanna College, on the Stacks podcast in the Blue Door Studio. Thanks for joining me. If you want to see more On the Stacks content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/onthestackspodcast, or search the hashtag #OnTheStacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. We'll catch you next time on The Stacks.